We're going to be on section 1010. Section 1010, page 309. Certificate of deposit and savings bonds. Okay. Certificate of deposit or CDs are another form of investment that can be used to increase your savings. CDs pay a higher rate of interest than savings account, but at least a minimum amount of money must be invested for a specific length of time. In general, the longer the time, the higher the interest rate and the less money required. If you draw money from, if you withdraw the money in a CD before the maturity date, there's usually a penalty, such as 6 months interest. Okay. So a CD or certificate of deposit, basically, you are putting your money into a bank, and the bank is going to take and use that money to reinvest it, and they're going to pay you a portion of the interest. Okay. But the problem is that money is tied up for usually 6 months to a year or longer. And like the book says, if you withdraw that money before that time limit is up, you're going to have to pay extra money or fees, okay, to get your money back out. So, CDs are a good thing if you have extra money just laying around and you don't know what to do with it. You can go and get a CD, and it will just earn extra money for you via interest. Some people do this. They buy a CD for 6 months, then they go and buy another CD after that expires, and they just keep reinvesting it, and they can get more and more interest off of it. Okay. It has in here the blue box sample CD rates. 1 month is 4.83%, 2 months 4.88, 6 months 5.14, 1 year 5.28. Okay. They have here a model problem. How much more will a 1 year $1,000 certificate deposit earn at 5.25% simple interest? The savings account of $1,000 at 3.5 compounded quarterly. Okay, so they want you to do the math here, and when you actually work it out, the CD gets you $17 more than a regular savings account. Okay, again, savings accounts are great for saving up small amounts. CDs are good to help you get a little bit more interest, and they're good to help you earn safe interest and safe money, safe investing. But honestly, if you are looking to put your money in and retire eventually, this amount of money that you're making doesn't even keep up with inflation. Okay? Typically, inflation is about 6%, and you're only making, 4 to 5% off this stuff. You're going to want to, if you're looking at having a job, putting money away for retirement, you're going to want to talk to a financial advisor and get involved in investing in stocks and mutual funds and that type of stuff. But for safe investing, to keep your money safe, to help it earn a little bit of interest here and there, make a little bit more money, CDs and savings accounts work great. Okay. Savings bonds, those are also safe investments. Okay, let's see here. Series EE savings bonds are issued by the United States government and are sold for 50% of their face value. When the original cost plus accumulated interest reaches face value, the bond is said to be mature, and the owner is paid face value. $75 bond is sold for $37.50, and the holder receives $75 on the maturity date, which is currently around 17 years from the time of purchase. Okay, so a savings bond, you can go and buy a savings bond, and what happens when you buy a savings bond? You buy it for half of the face value. Okay, So basically, governments do this to help raise money. And what they're saying is that we need money now, but we're expecting to have all this money later. So what we're going to do in order to raise this money is we're going to have bonds. We're going to issue some bonds. So they sell these bonds, and you're going to buy them for half of the face value. Like the example said, they have a $75 savings bond. You go right now and you pay $37.50 for that savings bond, and when it matures, when it reaches that date, you can go to any bank and you can say, hey, I want to cash this bond in, and they're going to give you the full face value of that bond plus any interest. Okay? Sometimes, if you hold a bond past its maturity date, it'll still gain interest. Okay? So, if you have a $75 savings bond and you keep it 3 or 4 years past the maturity date, you can actually get more than $75 back when you cash it in. That happened with me. My grandma, when all of us kids were born, she went and bought savings bonds for all of us. And when we graduated high school, she gave them to us. Okay? So I got my savings bonds, and they were all matured by the time I got them. And I went to the bank and I cashed one of them in. It was like a $100 savings bond or something like that, $200. And when I went to cash it in, I got way more than what that bond was worth, okay, because of the interest on it. So savings bonds can be a good investment if you're not planning on cashing in for a long time, okay? It does take a while to cash in savings bonds. Like the example here said, it was 17 years, okay? Series E bond bought before May 1st, 1995 had a guarantee rate of interest. Bonds bought after that time are variable rate bonds. The government does guarantee that they will mature no later than 17 years, which means the yield is no less than 4.1%. No state or local taxes are paid on the interest earned from Series E bonds. Federal income tax is not paid until the bond are redeemed. Okay, so if you go to redeem a savings bond, no state or local taxes are paid on the interest. However, you do need to pay federal income or federal taxes when you go and cash that bond in. Model problem number 2 here. George Markham bought a Series E Series E savings bond on June 1982. The face value of the bond was $500. How much was the purchase price? Okay, so purchase price was going to be half, so he paid $250 for it. Give the month and year the bond matured if the maturity date was 9 years later. Okay, so the maturity date was 9 years later, so he bought it in June 1982. So it would mature in June of 1991. And then how much did Mr. Markham receive for the bond when it matured? So he bought it, the face value was $500. So he went and cashed it in June of 1991, and he got $500 back. Okay? So, see here. Let's go through problems 1 through... Let's do odd problems 1 through 21. Odd problems 1 through 21 for homework tonight on page 310 and 311. Odd problems 1 through 21. That's it. Don't forget to study for your quiz. We're going to have a lecture tomorrow before we give the quiz, because some of what's on that lecture is going to be on that quiz. Quiz is going to be sections 1 through 11, and then your test is going to be on Friday.
I'm not going to make you guys go through the, sorry, give me a second, go through the definitions, but we're on page 491. Our next set of poetic devices. So let's go with English Renaissance. So last time, obviously, our quiz went up to English Reformation. So let's do the English Renaissance. It's also referred to the Elizabethan period. You want to know that England experienced a revived interest in Greek and Roman literature. Okay? That's just basic that you can know about the English Renaissance. I'm not going to write, obviously, the entire definition on the quiz, but English Renaissance, 1485 to 1625. Okay? An epic is a long narrative poem based on a series of heroic adventures that are important to the advancement of a certain race or a country. Who remembers the greatest epic that we studied at the beginning of the year? Beowulf. Okay, epigram, originally any brief poem, often used as an inscription for monuments or tombs. In modern times, it is a concise saying, often witty or satiric. We want to know that definition, okay? In modern times, it is a concise saying, often witty or satiric. An essay, which is a work of moderate length in which the writer tries to develop his own thoughts on some subject matter. You don't need to don't need to know the familiar essay or the formal essay. The differences between those, we'll go into that depth maybe a little bit later, but just the essay. Exemplum, which is a short tale or an anecdote told to teach a lesson. You want to know that definition. Go ahead and turn the page to page 492. Exposition, the material that introduces the characters, the main conflict, and necessary background for a literary work. So we see the exposition towards the beginning of a story. In the exposition, it kind of mentions the setting, it kind of mentions the plot that kind of introduces us to the story in that way. And then foot, you need to know the pattern in a line of poetry consisting of one accented syllable and one or two unaccented syllables. You don't need to know the kinds of feet like anapest, dactyl, iamb, monosyllabic, spondylotrochee, just the definition of a foot. Okay, so make sure you study those. Then we'll go into free verse up until imagism later on, but make sure you study those tonight. And then tonight for homework is just to read pages 220 to 223, which would be about William Blake. So last night we should have finished off The Deserted Village of 220 to 221. Now you want to read page 222, 223. Sorry, not 220, 223, 220 to 225, just up until the end of William Blake. We'll discuss him in class tomorrow, as well as Elegies and The Deserted Village, written by Oliver Goldsmith. So up until tomorrow, read up until the page 225, so 220 to 225, okay? That's it for literature today, but go ahead and take out your grammar homework. Grammar books. We'll do our homework for tonight. Yesterday we talked about avoiding unnecessary shifting in a lot of things in the way that we write. Obviously, avoiding unnecessary shifting in tone, unnecessary shifting in subjects, unnecessary shifting in person or number. Okay, so let's practice that. Go ahead and open your book to page number 44. Give me 1 second. Page 43. Okay. Point of view. Go ahead and open your book to section or your handbook to section 23. That's on page number 97. Okay, so always have that handy when we're going through these, okay? And something that'll help us try to kind of point out what the shift is in, okay? So look at number 1, okay? So we're rewriting the following sentences, correcting any unnecessary shifts, okay? Number 1, if he were more diligent and was doing his best, I would likely be more lenient, okay? Try to work on that one. And if anyone or anybody can raise their hand and tell me What do you think the shift is in? Esther? What was it? Mood. Good. Okay, look at 23.4. Okay. So, again, with the mood, it's talking about subjunctive, indicative, and emphatic. Okay? A lot of times when it gives us a shift in mood, it gives us an example of subjunctive mood. Okay? Go ahead and turn actually to section 10.39. That'll help us with our mood. Okay? Section 10.39. Okay? That's on page 71 in your your handbook. So that's imperative, not emphatic. That's what it was. I knew it wasn't emphatic, but I don't know. I didn't really look back at it. But it's indicative, imperative, and subjunctive. Obviously, imperative is the mood where it gives a command. That's pretty self-explanatory. Indicative kind of states a fact or asks a question. But look at subjunctive, 10.42, okay? Subjunctive mood expresses an action or a condition as a conception of the mind rather than as a reality. So if you look at sentences kind of like number 1 on page 43, it starts off with, if he were more diligent, okay? Now I know this is in subjunctive mood because A, it's not really reality, okay? It's a conception of the mind. Obviously, he's not diligent. It's saying if he were more diligent and was doing his best, okay? That's all part of my subjunctive mood. So, notice my verb here. It's were, okay? It's not if he was more diligent and he was doing his best. Since it's all part of my subjunctive mood here, he's not actually more diligent and he wasn't actually doing his best, then I know it has to be in subjunctive mood. So, what would I change here in number 1? Does anybody can raise their hand and tell me? If he were more diligent and was doing his best. What needs to be changed there? Ian? Not were to was to were. Okay? So look at this on page 71 in your handbook. Okay? The subjunctive mood, we're at 10.43. The subjunctive mood has only a few forms which differ from indicative or which are different from indicative. Okay? Obviously, in indicative case or mood, we would always be doing the normal kind of tense of our verb, okay? I was here. Now, I wouldn't say I were here, okay? But because it's in subjunctive mood, it's a conception of reality or a misconception of reality or a conception of the mind, we need to have it in the past or in subjunctive mood. So a lot of things in subjunctive mood are the same as indicative are the same as if a singular subject would be as a plural verb. Obviously, in normal case, which would be indicative, I would want a singular subject to have a singular verb. I would want a plural verb to have a plural subject, right? But in subjunctive mood, the verb is all the same throughout, okay? Conception of the mind rather than as a reality. If it's any indicator to you, I know it's in subjunctive mood if I see an subordinated clause before that sentence. For example, if, okay? We know that if is going to be an introductory word to a subordinate clause, part of a sentence. So automatically I know it's possible that it can be in subjunctive mood, okay? So were is part of my subjunctive verb here, okay? So we need to keep all of that consistently the same. Look at number 2, okay? Maybe we can tell what shift this is in. Emma Hood, please. The woman made her way through the crowd toward Jesus and touches his robe. Who can raise their hand and tell me? This one's pretty easy to spot. What is this one? Michelle? Tense, okay? What needs to be changed here? Good, okay? My verb of the word made is in past tense. Okay, so my second verb, touches, needs to be in past tense as well. What tense is touches? Present tense, so make it past. The woman made her way through the crowd toward Jesus and touched his robe. Okay, go ahead and work on number 3. What do you think that one is? Caroline went to purchase some lace, but the kind she wanted was not to be found. Victoria, do you think you have an idea what shift this is in? She went to purchase some lace. The kind she wanted was not to be found. What was it? Not past. Look at your section of 23, point of view, okay? What's shifting here? What's my subject of the first part of the sentence? Okay. Caroline went to purchase some lace. What's my verb here? Went. Good. Okay. What's the second part? What's my subject in the second half? Okay, not quite. Kind. What's my verb? Kind, not wanted. The kind was not to be found. Okay, the kind was not to be found. Here, we kind of have a shift in something. Who has this one? So I see that Caroline is my subject here, but in the second part, my subject is talking about the lace, right? So what do you think this is a shift in? Ian? Not number. Okay, my subject is Caroline. Notice that in the first part of the sentence. My subject in the second part of the sentence is talking about the lace. So if we have two different kinds of subjects, we know this is the shift in subject, okay? So how do we fix this? How do we make the second part of the sentence to where Caroline is still the subject? Kylie? Yeah, she couldn't find the kind she wanted. Good. Caroline went to purchase some lace, but she could not find the kind she wanted. Okay, make sure that you keep everything consistent, okay? Number 4. Any reporter wishing to interview the governor must present a written request to the executive office by 10 a.m. the day before the proposed interview. Otherwise, the reporter shall be told to hit the road. Okay? What do you think is changing here? Do you think hit the road is something that you would say when it's talking about an executive office? Yes or no? No. Okay, so what do you think this shift would be in? Okay, it's talking about how something is very, what's it called? It's talking about, I don't really know how to talk about this without giving it away, but look at the first part of the sentence, okay? It's kind of very formal here. Any reporter wishing to interview the governor must present a written request to the executive office by 10 a.m. the day before the proposed interview. Okay, it's pretty formal. Then look at the second part of the sentence. Otherwise, the reporter shall be told to hit the road. Okay, so if it's changing in that kind of tone, well, I guess I just gave it away for you. Look at 23.8, okay? Avoid unintentional shifts in style or tone within a sentence or within a larger piece of writing, okay? Remember, with style, it's dealing with formal and informal, okay? Formal, obviously, is when you would talk about something like in a business letter, or in this case, referring to, obviously, the executive office. When it's talking about that, you're not going to say hit the road, okay? So how do we say hit the road in a more formal manner? Okay, the reporter will be told to leave the premises. The reporter will be turned away. The reporter will be asked to leave. Anything like that, okay? Hit the road is kind of like an informal kind of statement. Obviously, we know what it is. Informal would kind of be your everyday conversation. Okay, when I'm talking to you guys, I'm not going to use all these fancy terms and all these fancy words. Okay, I'm just going to talk to you like a friendly conversation. But with formal writing, whether you're writing a business letter, whether you're writing a business email, whether you're writing something that is going to be announced in front of the entire school, you don't really want to sound conversational, like you kind of want to sound a little more formal. So in this case, talking about the executive office, you need to be a little more formal. Okay? So that one was any reporter wishing to interview the governor. So all of that sentence is correct. The only thing I would change here is the reporter shall be told to hit the road to the reporter will be turned away, or something more formal than hitting the road. Okay? Look at number 5. Joshua asked if we would come by and pick him up and what time he will need to be ready. Okay? What do we need to change here? Look at this, okay? Look at my verbs. Is there anything that needs to be changed here? Again, though, there's something here that is that indicates to me there's some sort of subjunctive mood here. What's that word here, class? If, okay? So, what do we need to change here? If we would come by and pick him up, and what time he will need to be ready. What was it? Will to would. Make sure your verbs are the same, okay? This one would be shifting in tense. Look at this. Joshua asked if we would come by. He also asked what time he will need to be ready. So we're changing it to Joshua asked if he would come by and pick him up and what time he would need to be ready. Okay, make sure you're keeping those tenses consistent. Go ahead and do number 6. Young children will enjoy taking a role in a story or play and acting it out. Okay, this one's a little tricky, okay? But notice my subject, okay? What's my subject, class? Children. What's my verb? Will enjoy, okay? They will enjoy is my verb. Taking a role in a story or a play and acting it out, okay? Notice my pronoun before the word role. What is it? Not a pronoun, my article before the word. A, okay? Does that tell me singular or plural? Singular. What's my subject? Children. So, what needs to be changed here? Good. You should change a role to roles. Okay? Young children will enjoy taking roles in a story or play and acting it out. Or you can keep your word here, a role, but I need to make my subject singular. So you could also say, a young child will enjoy taking a role. Okay? That one was a little tricky, but what do you think that one was a shift in, class? Yes, that was 23.6 shifts in number. Okay? In this section, we're going to have to analyze every single word. I know that's kind of tedious, but analyzing every single word will definitely tell us something that might make sense to us, okay? So, yeah, that one was a little tricky. My mind obviously didn't catch that one right away as well. But it is right, though, because a role is singular. Since our subject is plural, we want everything else to be plural, okay? Number 7, the workmen put in many extra hours, and in the end, the job was completed by them on time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and work on this one, and I'll call on somebody, see what they have. when you're working on something, make sure you're looking at the subjects, make sure you're looking at the tense of the verbs, make sure you're looking if there is any shift in number, if there's any shift in a lot of things, like, okay, my subject is good on this side, does it match on the other side? Is my number here a singular? Does it match a singular part within the second sentence, or the second part of the sentence? Okay, that's what we're analyzing here. Can we really spot it as we're reading through them? Okay, who can raise their hand and tell me what's my subject in the first part of the sentence? The workmen put in many extra hours. Ellie? What's my subject? Workmen. What's my verb, Jaylene? Okay, not put in, but they put. Okay? Now, what's my subject and my verb on the second half? Emma, what's my subject? Job. What's my verb, Noah? Was completed. Okay? So, in this case, there's a shift there. Who can spot it? What's the shift in, Michelle? Okay, shift in subject. Okay, close. It also could be shift in what? Not number, look at 23.2. Shift in what? Voice. Here's why. Okay, what's my subject in the first part? Workman. Okay, my verb is put. Is that active or passive? Is the subject physically doing the verb? Yes, so it would be active. Now look at the second part of my sentence. The job was completed. Is the job doing the action of completing? Yes or no? No. So we know that it's passive here. So how do we make them both active? How would I change this? Not quite. Look at this. The job was completed by them on time. So changing in subject could work here, but this one wants to emphasize change in voice. How do I make the job was completed by them on time? From passive to active. How do I make that an active voice? Good. Okay. The workmen put in many hours, and in the end, they completed the job on time. So yeah, I could see where this got confusing with the subject, changing in subject, but since the second part is still talking about the job being completed by them, we just need to make sure that even our voice is the same. So active and active, passive or passive, okay? And a lot of times we do want to write an active voice. We don't want always to say, the door was opened by me, or the essay was written by me, or the sentence was talked by me, right? Or was spoken by me. We always want to say, we did this, we did that. We want it to be active. Look at number 8. A horse needs about 10 gallons of water a day. More water than that, especially after exercise, is not good for them. Okay? A horse needs about 10 gallons of water a day. More water than that, especially after exercise, is not good for them. Who can raise their hand and tell me what's wrong here? I said, who can raise their hand and tell me what's wrong here? Grace? Okay. Look at my first part of the sentence, okay? A horse needs about 10 gallons of water. Okay? So let's analyze that. How many horses are there? Okay, 1. All right. So that's my first part of the sentence. Then, more water than that, especially after exercise, is not good for them. Okay? So it's talking about water, fine. But is there any word that tells me there could be more than one horse here? Grace? Them. So if I'm talking about one horse here, what do I need to change? Okay. So you could change it to, if it's singular, what do I need to change it to? Okay, let me ask you this. Is them singular or plural? Plural. So if horse is a singular one, what do I need to change? Them to what's a singular pronoun here that I could change it to? Okay, does anybody else know? Kylie? Good. Horses need about 10 gallons of water. More water than that, especially after exercise, is not good for them. Or you can keep a horse and change them to him. Okay? If there's one horse, my pronouns need to be one or singular. If there's more than one horse, if there's plural on this side, my pronouns and everything else needs to be plural on that side. Okay? So make sure you make those, you make those equal. And then number 9, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin will be available at Dickinson College this fall, but the college will not offer Russian. Okay? What do you think this is a shift in? Emma? Okay. Hebrew, Greek, and Latin will be available at Dickinson College this fall, but the college will not offer Russian. Anyone has this? Victoria? What do you think this is a shift in? Okay, who can raise your hand and tell me? There has to be a shift in something. Let's try to figure out what it is. Yes, it is the shift in subject. Okay, what's my subject in the first part of the sentence, class? Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Okay, what's my subject in the second part of the sentence? College. Okay, so how do we fix this to where it's going to be the same? Obviously, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin are not going to be my subjects of the second part, but it's the concept of languages. The language needs to be my subject here. So how do I make Russian my subject? Who has that one? Michelle? There you go. Okay, simple as that. Hebrew, Greek, and Latin will be available at Dickinson College this fall, but Russian will not be offered or will not be available. Okay? All right, we did tonight's homework, so great job. Tomorrow we'll go over conciseness as our homework. Make sure that you are writing your, I know I said I would have our outlines ready for today, but I did not get a chance to look at that, so I'll have it, sorry for you guys, tomorrow or Thursday. But continue working on your first draft. Your outline should only be a guide, but you should already know what you're writing, okay? If you don't know exactly what's going to be in the body of your paper, I suggest you start with your introduction, okay? The introduction paragraph is the very first paragraph. It's going to tell me what you're writing about, okay? So obviously in the body, you're going to be talking about the college. You're going to be talking about the different parts of your vocation. But the introduction paragraph is the part where it's going to get me hooked in and tell me what you want, what you're going to talk about, okay? So introduction, maybe it's an introduction to where your vocation kind of originated. It's an introduction, maybe a story that maybe got you interested in becoming that vocation. Something like the introduction and the concluding paragraphs are basically your opinion or your outtake on a lot of things. The body is going to be mostly your research and kind of talking about the vocation itself. But again, if you don't really know exactly what you're doing right now, just go ahead and start on that introduction, okay? Tomorrow I'll have some example sentences or examples of an introductory paragraph and kind of what I'm looking for in our paper. I'll print that off so that you guys can take a look at it tomorrow and some things to consider while you're writing, okay? So it's not this week, but next week is the first draft, but obviously the first draft is always the one where we can always improve. That's the one we're going to be editing. Okay, maybe I didn't want to say this. Maybe this doesn't make sense in this paragraph. Kind of our first draft, working towards that final draft that'll be due later on. Okay, are there any questions, any comments, concerns? All right, you guys are dismissed.
All right, welcome to Algebra 2. We're going to get started. We're talking about matrices. We are on page 276 in your textbook. We're dealing with matrix multiplication. As we get going in here, I'm going to turn this up a little bit more. It seems really quiet still. I don't know what's going on today. All right, test. Words. Okay. All right, so real quick, we're talking about matrix multiplication. Now, yesterday, we discussed scalar multiplication of matrices. That is to multiply a matrix by a scalar. We just multiply everything in the matrix by the scalar. The multiplication of two matrices, however, is much more complex. Consider the multiplication of two simple matrices, matrix A and matrix B. For these matrices to be multiplied, the number of columns in A must be same as the number of rows in B. Okay? In general, MA by NA and MB by NB represent the dimensions of matrices A and B, and their multiplication requires that NB... Okay, look, if you put it down like it's shown here, okay, this has to be equal. If these two are not equal, you cannot multiply them. If these two are equal, or sorry, these two, excuse me, will give you the product dimensions. So if it's equal, it can be multiplied, and then we figure out it's going to leave a 2 by 3 matrix. Here, these are not equal, so it cannot be multiplied. It doesn't matter what the outside does. So first of all, we are just asked to determine by inspection if the given matrices can be multiplied in the order AB. Now, the order does matter with matrices, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in the order AB, so if we're going to take A and multiply it by B, well, A... Hold on. All right, A is 2 rows, 4 columns, so we call this a 2 by 4 matrix. B is a 4 by 2 matrix. All right, so we have 2 by 4 and 4 by 2. Well, the inside is the same, so yes, it can be multiplied, and it will give us a 2 by 2 matrix. All right, so that's the idea. With the next one, okay, as we look at this, well, A is a 3 by 4 matrix. B is a 3 by 4 matrix. 4 and 3 are not the same, so no. No, it cannot be multiplied. We don't even care about the outside at that point. If the inside of those is not the same, then it cannot be multiplied. Now, a general and specific multiplication example has been given below for comparison. Notice the two matrices A and B, where A is a row vector and B is a column vector. Because A is a 1 by 3 matrix and B is a 3 by 1 matrix, the two matrices can be multiplied. To obtain AB, we first multiply each column of element A by the corresponding row element of B, and then we add to obtain a single element for the product matrix. In the case of these matrices, the product is a 1 by 1 matrix, which is written as a single number because at that point it has ceased to be a matrix. So our general pattern for multiplication is going to look like, okay, first of all, we tested, and we know that 1 by 3 and 3 by 1, well, these two say, whoops, these two say yes, these two say 1 by 1, okay? In other words, a single answer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the first thing by the first thing, multiply that together. Then we'll take the second thing by the second thing and multiply that together. There was the first one. Third thing by the third thing and multiply that together. And then we'll add it all together once you're done with the row and column. Okay? And that's how this works. So as a specific example, notice that we have 1 and 4. Okay? Let me switch this over to a laser pointer. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So we're going to take 1 and 4 and multiply those two together. We get 4. Negative 2 and 7, multiply those together. We get negative 14. 3 and 5, and we multiply those together to get 15. And then, because it's just addition, and in this case, addition of a negative, because it's just that, we can simplify it down to a single number, which is 5. All right, so that's the general pattern. Now, as we get more rows and columns, what ends up happening looks something like this. All right, so what we get here is we take the row and multiply it by the column, and that's the first slot in our resulting matrix. All right, much like what we saw with the 1 and 1. Then we take the second row by the first slot or first column, and that goes in the second row of the first column. We multiply together the first row and the second column, and that goes in the first row and the second column. And multiply together the second row and the second column, and that goes in the second row, second column box. Okay, so that's the idea of what it is we're going to do, but this is the general pattern. Steps are listed on page 278. Page 278 lists the steps, but let's go through and multiply the following matrices. We are given these two, and so let's set this up. So the product of AB, I should probably switch back to pen. That might be good. Let's see here. All right. So the product of AB, what we're going to do here, actually, first of all, let's make sure we can. So A is a 2 by 4 matrix. B is a 4 by 2 matrix. Okay. So this says yes, we can. And these say it's going to be a 2 by 2. So I'm actually leaving myself quite a bit of space here. You guys will see why here in a minute. Okay, but that's the idea. Okay, how do I switch to eraser? I thought that was Windows or Command E. Oh, there's no shortcut for it. Oh, no, I do not want the highlighter. Sorry. All right, trying to give myself more room horizontally. All right. All right, so it's going to be 2 by 2. Okay. So in the first slot, what we're going to do is we're going to take -1 times 1, and that's going to be -1. Then we have 2 times 0, so that's going to be 0. And then we're going to have 4 times -2, which is -8. And then we're going to have 1 times 7, which is 7. Okay, so it's going to be my first element when we simplify that. I know I've made this matrices bracket way too big. I wasn't sure exactly how large I need. All right, then I go down a row. 2 times 1 is 2. -4 times 0 is 0. 3 times -2 is -6. And 2 times 7 is 14. All right, and then we need to do the second column on B, so that will move us to the second column in our results. And so starting with A, we get -1 times 0 is 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 4 is 16, and 1 times 5 is 5. All right, and then we're going to have 2 times 1, which is 2. Nope. 2 times 0, which is 0. -4 times 3, which is -12. 3 times 4, which is +12. And then 2 times 5, which is 10. All right, I'm just verifying very quickly to make sure I didn't make any other mistakes. Nope, that's correct. Okay. So that's the idea. You take a row by a column, and that's how that works. So as we condense this down into a more simplified form, -1 minus 8 is -9. Plus 7 is -2. 2 minus 6 is -4. Plus 14 is 10. Let's see here. 6 and 5 is 11. Plus 16 is 27. -12 and +12 is, of course, 0. So we just get 10 left in the lower portion. All right. And so we have multiplied those two matrices. It takes a while to get your head on, or to get this in your head, as far as, at least I know it did for me. So this is one of those things where you just really have to keep your head on straight and do it step by step. Do one thing at a time. All right, in B, we are told to multiply the following matrices. All right, so first of all, I'm going to do the check, and then I'm going to start on the left side of the screen so I have more room, because I'm going to need a large portion, and I'll probably put the answer up here. So let's go ahead and do the check. A is a 3 by 4 matrix. B is a 4 by 3 matrix. So yes, it can be multiplied, and it will be a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay? So that's going to be what we end up with. All right, I'm going to leave myself plenty of room here. And I'll put an answer up here when we're done. But I'm literally leaving myself as much room as possible because it's going to get big. So the first slot, remember, is going to be your first row times your first column. So we have 4 times 9. Actually, no, I don't want to be doing that because I'm going to need that first thing again. Why is there a shortcut for the pen but not the eraser? Okay. 4 times 9, which is 36. 1 times 7, which is 7. 1 times 1, which is 1. 8 times 3, which is 24. As we move down, 3 times 9 is 27. 0 times 7 is 0. 5 times 6. I feel like I said something wrong. No. I'm sorry. 3 times 9 is 27. 0 times 7 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And 4 times 3 is 12. I'm just verifying. Yes, okay. Doing bottom row against the first column, 5 times 9 is 45. 2 times 7 is 14. 6 times 1 is 6. 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, so that's the first row. Do you see where I'm leaving myself plenty of room now? Okay, this is going to be a little bit more writing. You don't have to show the fact that you're going to multiply. You can just straight up multiply. All right, moving on to the second column now. So I'll move to the second column of my matrix as far as the product. 4 times 8 is 32. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 6 is 6. And 8 times 7 is 56. Yes. 3 times 8 is 24. 0 times anything is 0. 5 times 6 is 30. And 4 times 7 is 28. Finally, last row, second column. 5 times 8 is 40. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 6 is 36. And 5 times 7 is 35. Okay. Moving on to the last row, 4 times 0 is, of course, 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 8 is 8. Second row, last column, 3 times 0 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. And 4 times 1 is 4. It's easy to lose your spot with this, so be very careful. All right, and then finally, we have last row, last column. So 5 times 0 is 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. And 5 times 1 is 5. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and create our answer matrix up here. So 36 and 24 gives us 60, and then 8, so 68. 27 and 17 gives us 44. 45, okay, hold on, 14 and 6 is 20. So this becomes 65, 75, 80. So we get 80 here at the bottom. $62, $63, $64, $65, $66, so 96. $54, that will give me 62, 82. And then 71, 75, 105, no, 115. Okay, and then we get 3 and 4, which is 7, and 8 is 15. 20 and 4 is 24. That's 30, so that gives us 35. All right, and that is your resulting matrix. Okay, so just, again, one step at a time. Take your time with this. Now, matrix multiplication does allow the distributive and associative properties of algebra. If A and B are matrices, A, B, and C are matrices, then A times B plus C is equal to AB plus AC. This holds true if B and C have the same dimensions to be added, and the number of columns in A is equal to the number of rows in both B and C. Okay, so we're going to do exercise C twice. The first time we're going to follow order of operations, show you what happens, and then we'll go through and show the distributive property. So the first time I'm doing the order of operations. Okay. Order of operations. Okay. So I'm going to have -2, 1 times 1, 2, 5, -2. Whoops, not 5 minus 2. Sorry, I know that's close together. Plus -2, 1, 0, 2. All right, so what we're going to do here first is we're going to take care of the parentheses first because that's how that works. So we have -2, 1. And then remember with addition, we add together the two matrices. So 1 minus 2 is -1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 5 and 0 is 5. -2 and 2 is 0. Okay, so that's what we get there. Then we can go through and first of all make sure we can multiply. So we have a 2 by 1. Nope, it's rows first. It's 1 by 2 and 2 by 2. So this is going to be yes, and it's going to be a 1 by 2 matrix. Okay, so we're going to end up with brackets that look something like this. So -2 and -1, times -1 is +2. 1 times 5 is 5. -2 times, there's only one column. -2 times 3 is -6, and 1 times 0 is 0. So this gives me a matrix of 7 and -6. All right, so that's the idea of using the order of operations. However, we can use the distributive property. So let's go ahead and illustrate that now. Instead of going through and doing order of operations, I'm going to go ahead and distribute. Okay. So we're going to start out with then, we're going to distribute A to B and C, which means they're both going to get multiplied by it. All right, so I'm going to have -2, 1 times 1, 5, 2, -2. We're going to add that to the result of -2, 1 times -2, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so we're going to go through and take care of this. So again, 1 by 2 and 2 by 2 tells us yes, and we'll have 1 by 2 answers. Okay, so -2 times 1 is -2. -2 times 5 is -10. No, sorry, 1 times 5, that's the thing you got to be careful about with matrices. 1 times 5 is 5. All right, -2 times 2 is -4. 1 times -2 is -2. I'm just going to verify that that's all correct. Yes, okay. All right, then we'll add that to this matrix here. -2 times -2 is 4. 1 times 0 is 0. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 times 2 is 1 times 2, I did it again. 1 times 2 is +2. All right, so notice then I'm going to have 3 -6 plus 4 0. Yeah, I was just making sure. I started checking in the middle. 3 -6 plus 4, 0 as my matrices. When we add those together, I get 7 -6, which, sure enough, is the answer we had previously. Okay, so it does work. It's a matter of which way you want to go about it. Now, the associative property does also apply to matrix multiplication. The dimensions of the first matrix must accommodate the dimensions of the second. If a third matrix is included, then the dimensions of the second must accommodate that of the third. This allows for either A and B to be multiplied first or for B and C to be multiplied first. let's go through and discuss that. So essentially, when you're doing your test, you lay it out like this. The insides have to be equal. Your final product, the thing at the very end, will be equal to those outer numbers. So we're going to do 3 matrices together. All right, so let's consider this. Now, I typically will just go in order personally, just because it's easier, but the associative property does work. So let's talk about, first of all, the check on this. So I'm going to have, this is a 2 by 1, a 2, nope, it's rows first. I do this to myself every time. All right, so it's 1 by 2, it's 2 by 2, and it's also a 2 by 2, okay? So this says yes for the first 2. This says yes for the second 2, so we're good there. And my final product will be a 1 by 2 matrix. So I'll go ahead and put my answer bank up here, okay? And I just know that it's going to be 1 by 2. So we're going to do this step by step. Let's first of all just handle AB, okay? And then we'll take care of C at the end. All right, so A, we have -1, 5. Whoops, this should be equal. Equal. There we go. Times 1, 3, 2, 4. This will give me a 1 by 2 matrix as well. So, whoops, my brackets are going to be too big, but that's okay. -1 times 1 is -1. 5 times 3 is 15. -1 times 2 is -2. And 5 times 4 is 20. All right, so we get 14 and 18 as my matrices here. Okay? So that's going to be my first product. So then I can take AB times C, which will be this. First of all, AB is 14 times 18. And then C we can copy down to be -3, 1, -1, 2. And we get, again, and we're going to get a 1 by 2 matrix. 14 times -3, which is negative. Why is my brain freezing? 12, carry the 1, 4. -42. 18 and 1 is just positive 18. It doesn't feel right. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1. 3 times 1. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Then 18 times -1 is -18. Be careful about spacing on here. I have very limited space on slides, so sorry. And then 18 and 2, or times 2, I should say, is 36. Why did I write 18? Okay. Like I said, real easy to get yourself mixed up if you're not paying attention. While I'm doing that, I'm going to give myself more room. All right. 14 times -1 is -14. 18 times 2 is 36. Okay, so this is going to equal -42 and 18 gives me -24, and 14 and 36 gives me 22. That's actually my answer. All right, so that's the idea there. Now, while you can distribute, while you can associate with no problems, you cannot use the commutative property of matrices. There are a couple exceptions. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, but matrix multiplication is not commutative. For example, if we take AB and BA, the exact same 2 matrices, but just flip the order, notice we end up with completely different results at the end of the screen. The product of a 3 by 4 matrix and a 4 by 2 matrix is a 3 by 2 matrix. Reversing the order makes the operation impossible, since the matrix number of columns of the 4 by 2 matrix is not equal to the number of rows of the 3 by 4 matrix. Even when reversing 2 matrices that creates a product, the result is usually not the same value. This on the screen demonstrates this. So it's first of all possible completely to make it impossible to multiply. Even if it is possible, you'll get a different answer. Now, there is an exception, and we're going to talk about that. Recall that for real numbers, the number 1 is called the multiplicative identity, or sometimes just the identity, because any number multiplied by 1 is equal to the number itself. Well, matrices also have that, and we call it the identity matrix. And this is a square matrix where every element in the main diagonal is 1 and every other element is 0. We talked about that main diagonal starts at the top left, moves down to the bottom right in our previous lesson. And so that whole diagonal is 1s. Everything else is 0. Now, this is a 4 by 4 matrix, so you'll notice it's labeled as I4. If it were 3 by 3, it would be labeled I3, 2, I2, 5, I5, and so on. Okay? So if you see the I4, just know that means we're using the identity matrix and it's a 4 by 4. Okay? That's what we're doing. When we multiply by the identity matrix, absolutely nothing's going to happen. If I multiply this 2, -3, 1, 4 by the identity matrix of 2, or the second identity matrix, what will happen is we'll get, first of all, it's possible and we get a 2 by 2 matrix. 2 times 1 is 2, and then 1 times 0 is 0. If I take then -3 times 1, we get -3. -3 times 0 is 0. If I take 1 times 0, I get 0. If I do 1 times 1, I get 1. If I do 4 times, no, I get, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 1 is 4. And so you'll notice after simplification, I get 2, -3, 1, and 4. Okay, that's the whole point of an identity matrix. Now, the identity matrix is not super useful by itself. It's like multiplying by 1. It's useful, and sometimes we need to. But the issue comes in when we're trying to undo something. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about here. As with real numbers, multiplying a matrix by the multiplicative identity matrix, produces the original matrix. While matrix multiplication is not generally commutative, the multiplication by the identity matrix is commutative because it's going to lead to the same product no matter what. One matrix is the multiplicative inverse, or simply inverse, of another matrix if the multiplication of the matrices results in an identity matrix. If you multiply two matrices together and get an identity matrix you have found the inverse matrix. No matter the order of multiplication, the two inverses will multiply to form an identity matrix. Okay? And so that's how that works. So you have to check both ways in that case. All right? So even if one way works, you have to make sure the other one doesn't. All right, so show that matrices A and B are inverses. Well, when we go through and multiply them together, first of all, again, we have a 2 by 2 and a 2 by 2 matrix. So this says yes, and the answer will be a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so I have 2, 1, 5, 3 times 3, -1, -5, 2. Okay, and so we're going to get 2 times 3, which is 6, and 5 times -1, which is -5. I'm going to get row, column, right? Yeah. Then I'm going to take 1 times 3 and get 3, and 3 times -1 is -3. Excuse me, I wrote 1. All right. 2 times -5 is -10. 5 times 2 is +10. And then we get 1 times -5 is -5, and 3 times 2 is +6. And so you'll notice then when we simplify, we get 1, 0, 0, 1, giving us an identity matrix. Therefore, these are inverses. Well, okay, these would be inverses as long as the other way works. And so if we go through and flip it, the math is shown on page 282 of your text. The math is shown there. It does also give the identity matrix. I'm not going to go through and do it here, but you would test both ways. All right, example G, to show that they're not matrices, it just has to fail once. So we're just going to try it the first time. Again, 2 by 2 and 2 by 2. So yes, and we get a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so I'm going to start out, and I'm not going to rewrite them this time. So 1 times 2 is 2, -1 times 1 is 0. -2 times 2 is -4. 4 times 1 is +4. 1 times 1 is 1. -1 times 1 is -1. And finally, -2 times 1 is -2. 4 times 1 is 4. And so we get a 2, 0, 0, 2 matrix. The book shows a 1. Did I do something wrong? -1 times 2. Oh, -1 times 1, not -1 plus 1. Sorry, excuse me. -1 times 1 is -1. So this leaves me a 1, 0, 0, 2 matrix. This is not the identity matrix. These are not inverses. Okay, keep your head on straight. Do one piece at a time. Go slowly. I have to go a little quicker because class time, but you guys can slow down and do it piece by piece and just pay attention. All right. Notice that in practice 6.2 with your green problems there, in the first section, you're only asked, can you multiply in the order it's given? If you can, you write yes. If not, you write no. Do not multiply. In the second section, then you're multiplying. And then finally, real quick, notice that in 29 and 30, your answer will end up being the same as the original because you're going to multiply by the identity matrix. Make sure that you show me your work because I need to see that you actually did something. And then finally, 33 through 35, you're determining whether those give you inverses or not. If they are inverses if they give you the identity matrix. They are not if they don't. But your answer will be essentially yes or no. Okay. Real quick, if you're on the computer, as far as typing matrices, it's kind of a pain. Probably be easier to handwrite, but if you want to try to figure it out, I know Microsoft Word has a feature for it, or Microsoft PowerPoint, as I've been using here. But even then, it's still clunky. So you may find it easier to handwrite matrices while you're working in them. Okay, if you want to figure it out, go for it. But I do expect it to look pretty close to what the book does if you're going to do that. All right. Past that, I will see you guys later. Again, quiz 18 over 6.1 to 6.2 is tomorrow. So make sure that you guys study for that. You guys have practice 6.2 due tomorrow as well. And I will see you guys later.